Tango Tango Papa 2085, December 11th, 2021.
Have we seen the actual reality of a monstrous crime? Or merely an illusion, the product of a tortured brain?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Tom Wiles here with you, coming to you this evening from Brookville, Pennsylvania. So, been back at work, I guess, about a week at this point, since I took my 3 days off a week earlier. So, my vacation is supposed to begin on the 16th, and so see how that works out. Of course, I've reminded the asset manager, and but right now I'm on a load that delivers to someplace called Keesby, New Jersey, and I think that's somewhere. It's in the Philadelphia area, of course, on the New Jersey side is where I think it's at. So roughly in that area somewhere. And I've probably been to the destination that I'll be going to, but not recently. I haven't been there, I don't think. So anyway, the weather has turned somewhat cooler. Today it was, the load that I have, I picked up in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area, and so I picked that up this morning, and it was, I don't know, the temperature was in the 40s, I think, but it ended up becoming very, very windy, and it's still pretty windy here in Pennsylvania. The temperature when I stopped, it was in the 40s, but it's still quite windy. So now last night, where I was at there at Grand Rapids, when I was unloading it late yesterday afternoon and early evening, it actually started raining, and there were periods during the night where I woke up and I could hear it raining on the roof of the truck. So but the rain was all gone this morning. I think I left there, it was about 5 a.m., I believe, when I left there, Eastern time. So the rain was pretty well over with, but it wasn't quite as windy as it became later, a little bit later in the morning. So, but and I guess from the news headlines that I saw, there were some rather serious tornadoes. I think the most serious of which happened in western Kentucky. Was it Mayfield, Kentucky? That's not very far from Paducah, Kentucky. And that area of Kentucky is actually quite close to Missouri, part of southeastern Missouri, and sort of I guess they tend to call that area of the country the so-called Mid-South. I don't know where they came up with that name, but that's what they call it. So, in any case, the weather is the weather, and it happens, and tornadoes can happen in different areas, and it doesn't really matter what time of the year it is. You would think that it wouldn't happen in December, but they do happen. They tend to happen more maybe in the spring or the fall, but they can happen depending on the area of the country, they can happen in the middle of the winter. So I don't know if winter's actually officially started yet or not. I don't really keep track of that. So what I wanted to do, I've got an article, and I'm going to read it, and it's kind of talking about obesity, and this is directly in relation to immunity, of course, the COVID virus, the various versions of COVID virus. So just jump right on into this. Impaired immune response in obesity could be a problem in achieving herd immunity. That's the title of the article. This was written by Mike Mutzel. And Mike Mutzel actually has a YouTube channel, and that's how I clicked through the link to this article that he has, where he's also linked to some studies. So in any case, I'll go ahead and read it. Scientists find lean subjects made protective antibodies after infection, while obese subjects did not make protective antibodies. They made maladaptive autoantibodies instead. Researchers speculate that leptin plays a role in skewing the immune response towards autoimmunity after infection. Researchers at the University of Miami have published studies finding that obese subjects have impaired immune response to the now endemic coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2. COVID-19 infections in lean subjects were followed by a predictable rise in protective LGG antibodies to the spike protein. So not so for the infected obese subjects. Although antibodies did rise after infection in obese subjects, these autoantibodies were directed towards self-tissues, not the protective antibodies towards the spike protein. The autoimmune antibodies increased in the obese subjects, but not the lean subjects, and were specific for a marker of oxidative damage and fat cell death known as I'm going to butcher this, like MDA, and adiposity-derived protein antigens, AD, respectively. Let's see. The researchers also noted a strong association with increased levels of autoantibodies directed at self-tissues and levels of C-reactive protein, or CRP. Higher CRP, more autoantibodies formed, especially in the obese subjects compared to the lean subjects. The implications of these studies are important for four main reasons. Obese individuals are at higher risk for severe infection and reinfection. Obese subjects are at a greater risk for autoimmunity post-infection. Obesity is linked with higher baseline levels of oxidative stress and fat cell damage, which is worsened following infection. The research team speculated that leptin plays a role skewing the immune system to be less tolerant of self-tissues and initiating the formation of autoantibodies. This research adds even more impetus to make nutrition, exercise, and healthy living part of the conversation as we learn to live with the virus. So, and he's actually got a video, and I can actually, if I think about it, I'll throw a link to the video in the show notes. I'm also kind of experimenting with this, and I'm using the webcam built into the computer here to again post a video to YouTube. So hopefully everything is working okay. So far so good. Hopefully I won't get into any kind of skipping problems. with the audio. So far, everything's looking pretty good. So what I take away from this video and this little blurb that I just read, this blurb of an article, is that obesity is much more of a problem than we think it is. Just in general. And I'm not just picking on fat people, and it's not just because I am on a low carb diet, and I've had success with it, and it's not that you could take it that way, but I've had direct experience. I've been overweight. I was overweight. I was obese, bordering on morbid obesity, but certainly obese most of my life. A good chunk of my life I was obese. And, it was just one of those things. I didn't particularly like it. But at the same time, trying to go on a diet or somehow eat less, because they always tell you, well, eat less, move more. And of course that advice is a fail. It doesn't work. It never has worked. It never will work. And if you do manage to eat less and move more and lose some weight, you're probably going to end up gaining it back with a vengeance. You gain it back plus some. And in the meantime, if you really do manage to lose weight on an eat less, move more type diet, you're probably damaging your metabolism. And your metabolism really is you can think of your metabolism sort of as the flip side of your immune system. Of course, we talk about the two things as if they're completely different things. Your metabolism's one thing, and your immune system is something else, but they're really not. It's really, the body doesn't discriminate between the two things that way. That's just a way, we kind of conceptualize them as two different systems, but they're and we talk about them as if they're completely independent, and what you eat doesn't matter. Well, what you eat matters profoundly, as has been demonstrated to me by being on this low carb diet now for 3 years. It has made a really profound difference. And as I've repeated ad nauseum, during the first year of cutting out the pasta, potatoes, rice, and bread, I lost about 35 to 40 pounds. And in the last 2 years, my weight has stayed right at 150. Regardless, sometimes I eat more, sometimes I eat less, but my weight just stays at 150. I still find it utterly remarkable that it manages to just stay right at 150, or just right around it. Sometimes it can vary as much as a pound or so, but generally speaking, it's always right on 150 or maybe just below. So, and it may just be a coincidence, but since I've been on a low carb diet, I've not had any kind of cold that I've been aware of, or any sort of an infection that I've been aware of. That hasn't happened in the last 3 years, and I was thinking about this. I can't remember a 3-year stretch prior to this where I didn't end up with, at least once a year, end up with some sort of a cold, or maybe sometimes it was more often than that. But I've had an entire 3-year stretch where I haven't had anything. And that's like I say, that could just be a coincidence, or it could be something more than a coincidence. It could be because I changed my diet. But if you watch this guy's video, he's kind of goes in depth to this more. One of the things that happens with, you think, well, fat, you've got belly fat. It's just sort of an inconvenience, and the body just stores this extra fat, and it's just sort of there, and it's not that bad. Not that bad. Our minds, we're able to sort of twist things around in our minds, and the reason I know that's because I did it myself. Twisted around in my mind that it really wasn't so bad being fat, being somewhat overweight, but actually it is bad. It is damaging. And one of the things he talks about in this video is that, and I don't know what the threshold is, but if you've got let's say a lot of belly fat, that belly fat tends to not be very well oxygenated. You'd think, well, it would have a blood supply. You would think it would have a good blood supply, but it actually doesn't. It's not very well oxygenated, so it's sort of anaerobic. And that could be one of the reasons why it ends post-infection, the immune system ends up sort of making antibodies against the fat itself. And you end up with a kind of an inflammatory situation where the person's immune system is attacking the fat, which is just crazy. Now we have, every human being, unless there's a certain disease that I forget the name of, that where you don't have any body fat, and that's actually serious. We need body fat. We have body fat for a reason. The normal human body has, even if the person is is able to maintain a certain body weight, you still got a certain amount of body fat. But beyond a certain threshold, that fat becomes instead of being an asset, it becomes a liability. It causes, it's a symptom of a dysfunctional diet. It's a symptom of a dysfunctional metabolism caused by the dysfunctional diet. So it really is a serious thing. And I know, and just looking at people, I look at people, I can't help myself. I'm always observing people. I was after I unloaded yesterday, it was a grocery warehouse in it was actually Lansing, Michigan, where I unloaded at. So I unloaded to this grocery warehouse, and so they let you park. They've got this big truck parking area, and they'll let you park afterwards. So after I left the guard shack, I parked in the this big truck parking area. Spent the rest of my break, and so kind of catty corner across the street, there was this large restaurant. And so I walked. It was 8 o'clock at night. They were open till 10 o'clock. So I walked over there, kind of bundled all up because the wind was blowing and it was raining pretty good. So I bundled all up, and I got an umbrella and kind of made my way over there. And so I was able to eat. And so while I was sitting in the booth eating, I was sort of looking at. They had a bar area, and then the basically an entrance. And so I was just sort of watching. That was just the view that I had when I was sitting there eating. And so there were all these people sort of milling about and coming and going, and well over half of them were obese. So there were some of them that I would consider morbid, that would probably fit into the morbidly obese category. And then there was this one guy that was beyond morbid obesity that was sitting over at a table by the kitchen. He must have weighed 400 pounds or probably more than that. The guy was huge. And of course, he never did get up. He was sitting in in a chair at a table, and he was sat there the whole time I was there. But a lot of the people were obese. You could just look at them, and you can, I can just look at people and I can tell, they've got all this extra fat. They go into the obese category. Maybe, some of them you could say were just overweight, but the majority of people that I see are really obese, to be perfectly honest. If you compare their height to their weight, and you use there's a formula that you can look up and type in height and weight into it, and it'll tell you whether, what category, if you're just normal weight or overweight or obese or morbidly obese, and then some of them will talk about super morbidly obese, and that's just not healthy. And of course, we use euphemisms. Instead of saying that someone's fat, we'll say, well, they look really healthy. Well, that's really not true. They're not healthy. It's really what you have to think is, you see someone that's obese, you really have to think they're not healthy at all. They're actually quite unhealthy, and they may not realize it. But I'm not saying that thin people could not, they're not going to get COVID, or they're not going to have the, other viruses, because other viruses sort of prey on dysfunctional metabolisms as well. I think the COVID virus in particular seems to do a better, seems to be more virulent in that regard, sort of attacking, more aggressively attacking people that are obese for whatever reason. But it happens with normal viruses as well, and we just haven't focused on it in the past, I don't think. I've never heard anyone really focus on that in the past, but I think that probably now people are thinking about it. At least some of us are. So, but and I'm really convinced, I know it for myself, with my own experience, what drove my obesity, my obesity, and then to at one point I think I was touching, really sort of touching on morbidly obese. If you go back to probably around 2000, 2001, I think I was getting probably really close to being where it could be considered morbidly obese. But certainly I was obese then, and but at that point I didn't really think that much about it. I just thought, well, I'm just fat. Everybody else is, so all these other people are too, so too bad. It's not that big of a deal. Well, actually it is. So I think, this virus thing, of course they keep pushing the vaccine. Oh my God, we need to get everybody to take the vaccine, or this thing's never going to go away. Well, it's never going to go away. This virus, this COVID-19 virus and its various mutations are now endemic. They will never go away, ever. It's just another coronavirus. It's just another family of coronaviruses to join all the other ones. It's never going to go away. It's endemic. And so what's the point of trying to force everyone to take a vaccine? Other than it's turned into big business. And it's a way of controlling people. But maybe people make the argument, my mom makes the argument that, well, the people that take the vaccine, it's been shown that when they become infected with the COVID-19 viruses, that they don't have as bad an outcome. Well, that may or may not be true. I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore, because there's been so many lies and so much propaganda pushed. I don't know what to believe at this point. But but here's what I think. I think that there's going to be a form of, there's always Darwinism. There's always a survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest always ends up happening, whether we want it to or not. It's there. And at least that part, Darwin definitely got that part of it right. It is survival of the fittest. And so these now endemic COVID-19 coronaviruses, the various variants, are around forever. And they will attack the people that have compromised excuse me. They will attack the people that have compromised immune systems. They'll attack the people that have compromised metabolisms. And the people with compromised metabolisms will necessarily end up with worse outcomes. And that's just, it doesn't guarantee that, if you improve your metabolism, you improve, and therefore you end up improving your immune system, because you've improved your metabolism, because it is actually one and the same thing. It's just kind of different elements of it. If you improve that, then you may, you're probably going to end up improving your outcome, and that's statistically provable. That people that have compromised metabolisms end up with worse outcomes with these viruses. And so that's the determining factor. It's not the, you can shout vaccine all day long. That's not going to save you. Maybe it gives you a little bit better outcome, maybe it doesn't. But what definitely will give you a better outcome is if you improve your metabolism. You improve your metabolism, you improve your immune system. The two things go hand in hand. It's one thing, really. So, but there's a lot of people that seem to believe, like my mother, believes in that somehow that this that these vaccines are almost like some sort of a magic potion that someone's come up with, and we can just manually tweak. We can just go ahead and manually tweak our immune system, and that's our salvation, and it's not. It really isn't. I'm sorry, but it's not. Now, could it be that the vaccines give people better outcomes? It could be. I'm not saying that it couldn't. And if someone has if someone's obese and they're eating all the wrong foods and they're obese, they probably should be going to the doctor and getting all of the tests and all of the checkups. Maybe take all of the vaccines. Maybe it'll help them, maybe it won't. They need something. But I'm convinced that if you really want to help yourself, you've got to straighten your diet out, and that means cutting out the carbohydrates. All the you can eat a few. I'm eating a few carbohydrates. Like today, the first meal that I had it was in an IHOP, International House of Pancakes, and so I had like a pretty good sized T-bone steak, and then they had some broccoli, and then they didn't have any salad, so I ended up with 3 eggs, and also had them throw in a couple of pieces of bacon, and that's what I ate earlier. And then this evening I was going to eat in a Denny's, and probably have, if they had it, I was probably going to get the salmon, but I stood there. It's actually here at Brookville, Pennsylvania, in this Flying J. I stood there waiting for quite some time, and then the gal came up and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we can't serve anybody else because our system went down." And so I walked off, and I went up to the front, and I got like 5 chicken wings that they sell up in the like the fuel desk at the Flying J. And I ate those, and then I walked back past the Denny's entrance, and they were letting people in again. So if I would have waited, I probably could have gone to the Denny's, but I'll still be here in the morning. That's where I'm spending the night at, is this truck stop. So hopefully the thing will be open tomorrow, but these places have really, I don't know, these places have really kind of deteriorated. And yeah, you can say, well, this virus probably, made the situation worse. But I think that we were already kind of on the way to problems prior to the virus striking. And it goes back to people spoiling their kids, and then you have the people that just don't want to work, and what have you, and so that's just been kind of exacerbated. You've had a lot of people that went ahead after the virus struck. There was tons of people, excuse me, that went ahead and retired. And I think that's really probably what we're seeing at this point, because there are some people that don't want to work. A lot of the states have done away with the ridiculous unemployment insurance. They've done away with that, and they're still having problems hiring people. But I think probably that problem was probably already there prior to the virus kind of screwing everything up whenever they decided they were going to close everything down. I think that problem already existed, but at that point you still had a bunch of older folks that were still doing those jobs that suddenly just decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and retire. I know that happened to the one of the dentists that I go to. This is a female dental hygienist. She went ahead and just retired. Because at first the dentist's office sort of quit. They closed their office pretty much for some period of time, and then they opened it back up. But at that point, she decided she was just going to retire because she was close to the retirement age anyway, and so she just retired. And so now they have some other people doing it. So, but I think that probably, especially with restaurants, you had a lot of it was usually elderly women, although sometimes it could be men, but typically in a Denny's it's going to be elderly women that were working in there, and I'm seeing very few of those now. There's still some around, but I think a lot of them they were at the age and they just decided I don't want to deal with this, and they're on retirement now, and they're just not working anymore. So that's that. So I think that's that's probably the problem now that I've kind of thought it out a little bit. So, but I don't know. I'm still convinced that in order to have meaning, in order to have a meaningful existence, you really do need to be primarily doing things for other people. You need to be doing things for other people, and that usually is going to entail some sort of a job, where you're getting paid. But not necessarily. You could be volunteering and doing things for other people on a volunteer basis. And, there are people that do, they claim to get meaning out of it, and I don't doubt them. I think that it's possible to get meaning out of something like that. But I think for the general person, just in general, you really do need some sort of a job of some sort where you're doing something, some kind of activity that you're engaging in on a regular basis, where you are doing things that are actually worthwhile for other people. And that's really, the only place where you're going to derive any kind of real meaning out of a meaningful existence. Because otherwise, you think about it, we're here for a fairly short time, and we're all going to die. None of us are going to get out of this alive, and so then therefore you begin to think, well, what's the point? What's the point of getting out of bed in the morning? What's the point of existence? But you need to have something to, some sort of an activity that gives your existence meaning, and it's not sitting and watching Netflix, or it's not sitting and watching YouTube. Or it's not sitting on a beach and with a margarita. That's not a recipe for a meaningful existence. Or sitting in a bar somewhere. So, and I'm going to repeat this and repeat this and repeat this because I really believe it, and it's absolutely true. So, anyway, my throat is really getting dry, so I'm going to take a drink. There we go. So, anyway, you do need some sort of to be doing something for other people, because otherwise, you're just waiting to, kind of distracting yourself, maybe waiting to die. What kind of an existence is that? Distracting yourself while you're waiting to die. So, anyway, let me look here through my notes. Yeah, I don't really have anything that I wanted to that I needed to talk about. So how long have we been going? About 30 minutes or so. So I think I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close. So I just wanted to talk about the obesity thing, because obesity really is, it's not just the innocuous thing that at least that I had convinced myself that it was. that it was just some sort of an inconvenience, and yeah, we knew it had some bad health connotations, and it was a symptom of other things perhaps, and it was, it's connected with all kinds of type 2 diabetes and all kinds of other problems, but it is bad in and of itself, in that it screws up your immune system. It's and that's primarily because it's a dysfunctional metabolism, and it's driven. It really is driven by the carbohydrates. Now, I know the carbohydrates taste good. They taste great. They really do taste good. But they're poison. You just can't get away with eating that stuff. You really can't get, like I was saying today, what I had carbohydrate-wise was basically, there's a little bit of carbohydrate in the broccoli that I got this morning, and then there may have been, I don't know if they had some seasoning that they had on those chicken wings, or may have been a little carbohydrate in that, and then I ate some of these cheese sticks, and actually, since I'm running the video camera, I can actually show them. So here's the package. Let me see if I can reach in here. This is, I'm holding this up to the camera. This is what they actually look like. They're sort of, I'd say they're about 5 inches long. They're sort of in a plastic tube thing, and they're, so I'll eat a couple of them at a time as a snack, and I find them really satisfying as a snack, and they do not affect, I can eat them or not eat them, and they do not affect my weight. Now, the other thing, reach over here, you've heard me talk about this a lot, the pecans, or not the pecans, I have the almonds that I got, a 2-pound bag, that you get them at Sam's Club. They are, was it Blue Diamond brand? So I'm holding those up to the camera. 2-pound bag, and I think they're either $12 or $14 for a 2-pound bag. And so a 2-pound bag will last me quite some time. And I'll eat maybe up to about a third of a cup at a time, when I feel, and it's usually when I'm going down the road and I feel like I want a snack, and I've got those, and so I'll eat some of those, and they seem to work pretty good, and they do not affect my weight at all. Like I say, for the past 2 years, my weight has just stayed right on 150, just right around 150. It's remarkable. But and there are some carbohydrates in the almonds, but the almonds are pretty low in carbohydrate, and as well as the cheese. And this cheese probably is not the greatest cheese, because it's probably more of a cheese food product, and there's people that will that don't like cheese food product. They want you to get the real thing. Well, that's not always easy to do. If you're shopping in a supermarket, it's not always the easiest thing to get all of the cleanest, best products. So I kind of have to take what I get. The same way eating in the restaurants. That they're probably using the so-called vegetable oils, which are actually industrially derived seed oils. They're probably using those as as their oil to cook things with, and so that's not the greatest either. But that's kind of what I'm stuck with. So. But anyway, regardless of that, I've lost 35 to 40 pounds, and then for the past 2 years, my weight just stays right on 150, and I feel better than I have in years. It's really quite remarkable. So Anyhow, hope everyone has had a great week. Hope you have a great weekend. And I will catch you later.
Remember, Trucker Tom is like Visa. He's everywhere you want to be.
Product reviews, restaurant reviews, photos, opinions, and more. Visit Trucker Tom's website at www.truckerphoto.com. You've been listening to Trucker Tom's podcast, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. All you have to do is send us an email to tom@truckerphoto.com.